Uh, oh yeah,
Alright.
and just so everyone knows, we are recording the meeting. If you're not comfortable with that, please let us know.
Yeah, do I have share screen privileges?
You will in 1 second. Now you
Wow,
should.
so much power. This is the one, I think. Can y'all see this? Oh, that might not share the right one. Hold on. This is the one. Okay. Can y'all see this just fine?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. All right. So, hello everyone, and welcome to Virtual Seas. So normally, if we were to have this meeting, so if coronavirus weren't here, we'd be showing you probably our beautiful campus over in Alston. So in lieu of that, today's tour will mostly be focusing on Alston campus and not the Cambridge campus. But we will still be showing you a little bit about Seas, where we came from, and also a little bit about our Cambridge campus history as well. So welcome to Seas. This is a view of the Northwest building. Some of you may have taken classes here before. There's the cafeteria inside, and it is one of the Seas buildings. So just to start out, here's a quick kind of video clip about that was produced a year or two back to promo for Seas. So let's see if this works. Let me know if you can hear it. There's no sound yet. All right, so that was just yeah. So that's just a quick kind of intro. A few people made cameos, including our dean, Dean Frank Doyle, and also some of our faculty and staff. Oops, I didn't need to. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. All right, so yeah, some of our faculty and staff made some cameos there as well. So just a quick bit of history about Seas, where we came from. And there's a link bottom here if you want to see a longer timeline of what this kind of all happened. So Seas' beginning started out in 1847 as the Lawrence Scientific School. The first big kind of monetary funding came from Gordon Mackay. And upon his death, a lot of this money kind of became available in separate parts, and only recently in the 21st century has the last bit of money become available. So Seas has been funded a lot through Gordon Mackay's donations. Pierce Hall, which is the building here shown in the top right, is one of our central buildings in the Cambridge campus, and that opened up in 1901. There was a first merger attempt at MIT proposed in 1904, and that one fell through mostly out of opposition from MIT's faculty. Subsequently, the Lawrence Scientific School got folded into Harvard as a graduate school. So prior to that, it was not kind of, Harvard has this kind of weird combobulation kind of history. So before that, it wasn't really a school within Harvard. It became a graduate school in 1906. There were several attempts to merge with MIT, the most prominent ones of which happened around 1914 to 1916. And they were permanently scuttled by the Massachusetts Supreme Court in 1917 over concerns that the Gordon Mackay's funding was given specifically to Lawrence Scientific School and Harvard and not to MIT. So merging with MIT would go against his will. Subsequently, Harvard Engineering School was established in 1919, and the first master's program in computer science was established at Harvard in 1947. Okay. In 1949, so this is what this is both after Second World War. The Harvard Engineering School was reorganized into the Division of Engineering and Applied Sciences within the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. In 1971, Harvard joined ARPANET, which is the precursor to the modern internet, through some of its affiliations within Ds, I guess, what would have been called. In 1978, the division was split into 4 main units, which were applied physics, earth and environmental sciences, engineering, mechanical engineering and material science, and electrical engineering and computer science. And a lot of this kind of initial division still happens, is reflected in a lot of the areas that we have today. The first standalone undergraduate program in computer science at Harvard was established in 1984 through the Division of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Maxwell Dworkin, which is this beautiful building over here in the top right corner, which has like a point, was opened in 1999. The name of the building is a homage to the mothers, I believe, of Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, who, as some of you know, were the co-founders, the co-founders of Microsoft. In 2007, Ds officially becomes its own school and is now known as the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, or SEAS. And in contemporary times, SEAS is expanding into the Austin campus, and moves are actually happening as we speak in this academic year. So the main mission of SEAS is for SEAS to be where engineering, foundational science, and the liberal arts converge. Through education and research, we address global challenges and serve society. A lot of this has a lot of interdisciplinary undertones to it, and SEAS puts a lot of emphasis on interdisciplinary work. This is kind of reflected in the way that SEAS organizes, whereas most schools have departments. SEAS, officially speaking, does not have departments and has areas instead. And areas, and students and faculty are just kind of encouraged to flow across these area boundaries. So you might have a professor who's a bioengineering area professor, but has students doing mechanical engineering or students doing electrical engineering. It's really just about the content of the research and not so much about the category it falls under. As for its values, by playing an important role in the education of all Harvard students and shaping Harvard's identity as a university, SEAS will train the next generation of leaders. Our vision for SEAS is for a SEAS that is diverse and inclusive, world-changing, contextual, convergent, and agile. I really want to highlight the diverse and inclusive part because I believe SEAS was the first school at Harvard to establish an official office of diversity, inclusion, and belonging by hiring Alexis Stowe, which prompted a greater movement within Harvard as a whole and some of the other schools to establish their own departments of diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And I'm really, really happy that we're part of that. So doing the numbers. So we love numbers, engineering applied sciences. So quick numbers from smaller to roughly larger ones. There are 6 undergraduate concentrations, and I'll show some of these later. 11 graduate programs, 4 master's and 7 doctoral, also going to be in a slide later. And as of January this year, because I don't think because it's updated annually, we had 148 faculty members. So this is ladder. 685 appointed researchers, including 225 postdocs, 190 staff members. So this is kind of support and admin. 1,072 undergraduate students enrolled in SEAS programs. This number is probably a little bit lower now that a lot of students have taken the semester and year off for this year. As of the year previously, there were 679 graduate students, master's and doctoral. There are over 9,000 alums and graduates. And with inclusion of the Austin campus expansion, we now have a little more than 600,000 square feet of teaching research space, split or shared among the Cambridge and Austin campuses for SEAS. So I was talking kind of about the programs, and they kind of fall into three categories. So there's the AB, SP, and ABSM, which are the undergraduate, and the ABSM is a joint master's program. And those are the applied mathematics, bioengineering, computer science, electrical engineering, environmental science and engineering, and material science and mechanical engineering programs. Some of them are kind of abbreviated to make space on the slide. We have four main master's programs. There's the computational science and engineering and data science programs, which fall broadly under, I think, applied computation. There's the MDE program, Master in Design Engineering, which is co-hosted with the design school. And there's the MSMBA program, which is co-hosted with HBS. And for our doctoral programs, we have 7 different areas. We have applied mathematics, applied physics, bioengineering, computer science, electrical engineering, environmental science and engineering, and MSME. Notably, the applied physics program is only a doctoral program and does not have an undergraduate counterpart yet. So as far as student government, we have, it's pretty kind of distributed on multiple levels. So for all of CEAS, there's the CEAS Graduate Council, on which I am a co-president, as well as Rachel Zoll. And we're kind of responsible for organizing and activities for and advocating on behalf of all of the CEAS graduate student body, and occasionally, often including postdocs, fellows, and those who are not strictly students per se. We also have area-specific organizations. So Applied Physics has an Applied Physics Graduate Student Council. Computer Science and Electrical Engineering have a merged combined graduate council, the CSE Graduate Council. And then there are kind of more ad hoc groups in bioengineering, environmental science and engineering, and MSME, who are kind of more students at large, where they're not a formal grad council, but they are organized more or less by the admin and help organize events on the students' behalf to kind of collaborate with admin on those events. So just kind of a bump on kind of CEAS Grad Council, because that's kind of my main thing. So CEAS Grad Council, again, does a lot of outreach and planning and support planning. And this is kind of just a splash poster of all the things that HGC does. Things are a little bit more difficult now, but we still try our best to make as much as we can happen. Right now, we're meeting every other Tuesday. So it's actually 1 week we have HGC meetings, and the next week we have CGC meetings. So Rachel and I are always meeting every week. Some kind of events that we've done recently. So a thing we started about a few years ago was an AMA with our dean. And this is a super popular event with our students where our dean gets up for an hour to do a Reddit-style AMA event, and it's super fun. Sometimes we ask him really trivial questions. The inaugural one ended up having a meme built out of it, where everyone kept asking about the coffee machine on Peter's second floor. So that's always fun. We also are involved in a lot with orientation open house. So we hosted 2 events for orientation this year. And then we also have some more kind of longer term projects like In Touch, which is more for mental health and well-being throughout the year. Peter, how am I doing on time?
You're doing good. Got another minute.
Okay. All right, I'll just show the intro to the SEC video, and then I think that'll be it.
The building has amazing new open spaces at all levels. Multiple lounges. It was really important for us in computer science to be able to have the kinds of nooks, the kinds of spaces for accidental interactions, so that people could just find the right space for the way that they like to work.
So there's about 3 more minutes to this video, but since we're kind of short on time, I won't go through all of it, but so I guess just, yeah, that is David Parks. Here,
Wanted to bring the
there. Now the attribution is there. So I know we're supposed to kind of do a tour. This is kind of the best we got. So the SEC is a new building built in Alston for CESA's purposes as an expansion. And it's a very large, beautiful glass building, and with a lot of core quality of life improvements. One of the main things that I think we're really trying to highlight is the liveliness that it brings out. So on the, come on.
the building.
There we go. So here's like a view from into the atrium, and you can see it's very well lit. It has kind of gives you a sense of the scale of the building. Every room has access to either direct light or indirect light. So there's windows in every single office, and so the building itself was kind of very carefully designed to be to be very open and collaborative, just give a sense of being together. So, I guess had I been a little bit faster at talking, maybe we could have seen more of that video, which shows a little bit more about the time span of the construction. But maybe next year we'll invite you all to come visit in person. And that is it, I think.
All right. Thank you so much. William, yeah, Chincy asked if you can send the link for the video, which would be wonderful if people do want to take a look. If you can post it in the chat.
Yeah, I can do that. Let me hold on. Let me just find that link. Unfortunately, I do not have the link super handy. It should be this one. Yes,
in
this is the right one.
William, can I just ask a question? I remember last year when we were chatting, it seemed like there was a lot of, I guess, like anxiety about moving to the Austin campus. Like, how have you guys been dealing with the transition?
Yeah, well, a lot of the transition anxiety kind of came from not knowing anything, right? So last year around this time, we had very little information about who was moving, when that timeline was going to look like, how moves were decided, what transportation was going to look like, housing, kind of really anything. Part of that's kind of gone away, right? Like transportation and housing are less of a problem now because fewer people are getting access to the campus to begin with. Now, people who do have labs who moved over, like Rachel, now have to kind of worry about a different kind of commute. So that is kind of still a concern. But right now, people, I guess, in a kind of weird and wonderfully weird way, coronavirus has given us a chance to kind of ease into the move in a kind of bit by bit manner. So I think people are kind of getting more accustomed to it now. We'll see kind of how the physical move really affects everything kind of next year when people are physically back in the lab again. But right now, people who've been in the building really like it. People who've seen it really love how it's been designed. And we're just going to take it bit by bit. Engineers and engineering and science is always about taking things bit by bit and seeing what you can do with what you got.
If I can also ask a question, is the Alston location now connected to the business school? And is the idea to foster greater connection between the two schools?
Well, so they're not connected. And the idea was to expand C's into Alston. Now, as a kind of effect of that, because now we're a lot closer to HBS, and iLabs is right there across the street. It is going to be a lot easier to make those collaborations happen when they do happen.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
So Peter, if you want to put the agenda back up. Again. That was wonderful. So let us move from C's to C's and all the other schools, and we will start the public comments, and we will recognize Nima, who has a specific idea he would like to bring up. So Nima, take it away.
Hi, everyone. That discussion of buildings and design was a good segue. I'm one of the reps from the graduate school design. Something that's come up a lot in thinking about what we've been lacking in this virtual semester has been kind of informal connections and these kinds of mixers that we could have as a way of like getting schools together, just a thing we don't have anymore from sharing a campus. And I've sort of seen that like a lot of like no one wants to do another Zoom call like any more than we already have to, and there's a fatigue with that. That's also like has a harmful social aspect to it. But I did see like a few groups do some great stuff, like the real estate development group at the mix with the GSD and the HBS use a software called Remo, which I'm going to put the link into the chat, which basically creates like a virtual space that you can move between tables, and that little bit of agency causes a lot of it makes it actually a really beautiful experience, and actually I made it so that I made a lot of valuable connections with both faculty and other people from different schools in a way that wouldn't have been possible with breakout rooms from Zoom. But really, I wanted to take this time to see if people are interested in this and to contact me if we can create like a group to kind of like pool resources and see what's the best way to generate these sort of spaces again, and possibly start doing that between schools. And something like Remo, which is a paid service, I think would be best advantaged if we do it as an HGC thing. I don't know how that would work with our already approved budget, but something that each school can take advantage of in different pairings throughout the semester, either now between now and the finals week or starting next semester. So I'll throw my email in the chat. If anyone's interested, contact me. I'd love to get a group going to start investigating this.
Thanks so much for that, Nima. I just had a question about that. For using this website, is it going to be, you're thinking there's more like larger groups of students chatting with each other from different schools, or you're thinking more like, you know, like a smaller group, or I'm thinking like HGC?
Yes, I was thinking of as HGC amongst us, like reps or anyone who's already like interested in this group to be the organizers for larger school-wide mixers. Like, so like I went to a couple like between GSD and HLS where like ended up being around 50 people, half from each school, and that was really successful. But to open it up to the student bodies of each of these schools with different pairings throughout the year.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really great idea. Like when I was the HMS rep, we definitely ran, I think, to one of those mixers in person, obviously, and they were really successful. So definitely as reps, definitely take that advantage to get to know each other and make these things happen. Thanks so much, Nima.
Of course, yeah. So, and through my email, so contact me if you're interested. We can start something with a GSD between any of the other.
Okay, great. I don't know, Peter, did we do approval of the agenda? I assume we did.
Oh, we did not, which we should start doing. So, Tracy, if you want to take it away, because I'm not. Do we?
Oh, sure. Yeah, basically, you know, we have all these different procedures through HGC, but one of it is like for approval of the agenda after we go through the tour. It's just we ask for one rep to, you know, basically create the statement, create the motion to approve the agenda, and then we have a second rep basically approve that second that. So if anyone wanted to motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Great.
Awesome.
And we can get a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, thanks so much, guys.
Is that the what's called sort of vote by unanimous consent? Like unless someone opposes, then once we do that.
Yeah.
Balloting is fine. Just without dissent, we can pass the motion.
Right.
So is there any dissent on approving the agenda? All right. If there's no dissent, then motion passes to approve the agenda.
Great. Okay, so let's move on to the next part, which is our updates and reports. So I'll start with the executive. And just a quick update from me. We're going to be having our meeting with our advisory board soon. And just to give, I can't remember if I mentioned this during our executive board meeting or during the general council meeting, but basically we'll be meeting with these administrators. You guys heard from Marshall last week, but Marshall is part of the advisory board, as well as Jackie Yoon, who's head of GSAS Student Center, as well as Lisa, who is the associate director for the Harvard University Housing, as well as Julie Kreitz, who is director of Common Spaces, and the two co-chairs of CODOS. So we'll be having that meeting relatively soon. I think I'll ask our operations team to send out the form that you guys filled out for Marshall if you had any questions that you wanted Jojo and I to bring up to these administrators, because basically they're just trying to give us advice on how to get things done within the administration if we had any student input. And we'll go through our agendas from the past few weeks just to see if there are any issues that people brought up previously that we can mention with them. But if you want to just make sure that the issues that you've talked about in the past few weeks get reviewed, just send us like a private message or send a message in the reps WhatsApp, and we'll make sure that gets done. And then another thing is that we're likely, so William and Rachel will know this, we'll be having our President's Circle meeting soon, which is a similar gathering of the leadership from the different schools, but in terms of the presidents. I think it's going to be this Saturday. We're not sure yet. We haven't finalized the date, but similarly, if there are any pressing issues at your school that you would like us to discuss with the advisory board or with within the President's Circle, like William was there last year, so he knows how that goes. But yeah, let us know, and we'll be happy to discuss any of these. And I will give an update at our next General Council meeting about all the things that we were able to talk about.
Cool. Thank you, Trincia. In terms of my updates, it really is just that we've spoken about this multiple meetings now, but we really want to try to do this for our next General Council meeting in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, we had at least one member who's unable to make it tonight because she's in an entirely different time zone, and it's not possible. We already sent out a when to meet that was focused just on Monday. We're going to try to expand it a little and see if maybe there's another day that we can hold the meeting. So please keep an eye out for that. It'll be sent to the reps chat. The executive board will fill it out as well. And if you could just fill that out as soon as you're able to, and let us know what times work for you, so that we can try to find a time that is able to work for everyone for our next meeting and at least a couple of meetings moving forward, and have the most convenient times that we can as we figure out how to move through being remote and being all spread out, and something that is likely, unfortunately, going to carry on for the rest of the year. So that is my update, and I really hope everyone can make it to whatever time and day we end up having our next meeting, which is one more General Council meeting this semester. So hope everyone can come out and join in 2 weeks as well. With that, I will turn it over to Hinja and Peter for the one of our pretty substantive updates. Take it away, ops guys.
Great, thank you so much. If you guys can't hear me, please let me know because my internet's a little spotty. So just a few quick updates. We're currently meeting one-to-one with all our presidents. We've completed 7 out of those 12 meetings. We'll continue to send out those emails to people who we haven't met with yet in order to meet with everyone. And Peter and I will also be meeting with our reps. So Peter has sent out that email. If you haven't filled out his when to meet poll, please do so. So that way we can meet with every single one of you. Some of the things that we talked about during your president's meeting that I figured was important to bring up here was some of the presidents had mentioned that there were issues with facilitating partnerships between schools. So a lot of people were saying, just because there are two schools that might be good to connect with for an event doesn't mean that all we can do from our side is to just email people and have that be all that we do. I think that schools need a little bit more support from us when it comes to facilitating those partnerships. And so that's something that we need to think about. Another issue that was brought up was right now there's a lot of events going on at all the different schools, and there are several different calendars, like master calendars, that compile a bunch of events together. But it's kind of overwhelming given the amount of events that different schools are holding. So one thing that was brought up was potentially exploring how HGC can communicate that and consolidate the information going out to provide to our members succinct, maybe like top few events that are going on at each school, so that we're facilitating that. Another thing that was mentioned was creating spaces for schools in the same geographical locations to meet. Obviously, everything is online, so it's a little different. But for example, the Longwood schools don't really meet that often, and that's definitely a wasted opportunity just because, the schools in that area are very interested in the same things. So that's something that we're going to try to explore bridging the gap on. And another thing that was mentioned was providing contact lists of all the presidents and reps so that different schools could communicate with each other without having to go through the whole HGC process. And that's something we're considering as well. So those are kind of the updates on that. And if you have any other, if you have feedback that you want us to have, please feel free to email Peter and I. Another thing is that we're still working on the Secret Santa. We're probably going to be using Elfster to facilitate that. So just keep an eye out for an email. We'll be sending communications on that, and we'll try to get that through for you guys. And now I'm going to pass it over to Peter for the really substantive updates on Constitution and bylaw amendments. So take it away, Peter.
All right, everyone. So for those of you that we have not been able to meet one-on-one yet, kind of like we talked about last week, I just want to sort of reintroduce this conversation about the Constitution and bylaw amendments. So this year we're doing something a little bit different where we're introducing the Constitution and bylaw amendments twice. One at the end of the fall semester, which I believe is actually the next meeting, and then one which will be at the end of the spring semester. So right now, we talked amongst the executive board, and we felt that there was some, given the nature of COVID and the Zoom and the virtual nature of things, that there were some amendments that were particularly time sensitive that was important to be introduced this semester. And so one of the things that I am trying to do is to introduce all of the amendments today. I'm going to take up to 3 points on each item if people want to sort of pitch in their voice here. And Himaj, I'd love your help in annotating the minutes while I sort of help lead the discussion here. But I also want everyone to know that this list of amendments was not necessarily made by one person or one entity. As soon as I sort of announced this at the last general council meeting, I kind of got emails and Zoom, executive Zoom calls and a lot of different methods of texting, and people sort of all pitched in their 2 cents, which was really wonderful that people were so passionate and active about it. On that note, though, I do want to let you all know that this is a collective body of ideas. So none of these are set in stone, and it's really important to not only respect other people's ideas if we don't feel comfortable with them, or if we do support them. So I do want to make sure that everyone keeps that in mind as we're discussing this openly, particularly on a recorded meeting. The second thing that I want to mention is that because we can sort of anticipate that these discussions will be incredibly lengthy, we don't want to hold these at the next general council meeting. We want to sort of hold this offline. So I'm sort of taking a multi-pronged approach. The first approach was to sort of ask the executive board to open up discussion, which I got a little bit of comments. The second approach, there are one-on-ones with the reps. I'm sort of getting some feedback there. Third approach is that we're also opening up a public Google document where it won't be editable, but it will be commentable. So we'll still get anonymous comments if you so choose to express your opinions anonymously. And this will be open to not just the reps, but to the greater Harvard community if they wish to comment on the amendments. Ultimately, the voting reps will be the ones to cast the votes, though, at the next council meeting. And lastly, I'm also opening up a governance committee so that we can meet hopefully next week and one more time. So 2 meetings, I would say, before the next general council meeting, so we can really go into depth about further discussions into all of these topics. So with that, I'm going to go line by line and sort of just discuss. And again, I'll be taking 3 points per item, and then I'll be moving on to the next one, okay? So to introduce the first amendment, one of the amendments that was proposed was, oh, sorry, sorry, Himija, I realized that that's part of the notes. So one of the first amendments that was proposed was to serve on the executive board. There was some recommendations about making sure that the next elected member could be present on the HGC meetings in person. Traditionally, it seems like that the norm was that the HGC meetings were in person. And with the nature of Zoom, we understand that people can get elected remotely. Should Harvard choose to go back on campus next year, some people were discussing about it'd be important for that candidate to know the expectation would be to come back on campus to attend the HGC meetings and to serve their time on campus. Some other discussion points that branched out from this suggestion was with the nature of Zoom and this sort of being the norm for this year, people recommended, well, what if next year we continued with a hybrid model so that at every general council meeting we open up a Zoom and make sure we have teleconferencing capabilities alongside our in-person presence. So does anyone have any points on this amendment or any recommendations about this? And if you can use your raise hands feature on the participants, I think it'll just help facilitate overlapping conversation. Actually, Diego, so I'm going to go through all of the amendments just at the recommendation of the executive board before we take comments. So just please take notes on the comments on the amendments that you'd like to comment on, and then I will go back and ask for hands. Okay, so the next conversation was about video submissions for elections. So for the spring elections, one of the recommendations was to not allow video submissions. Part of this discussion stemmed from the fact that it wasn't necessarily equal or fair for some candidates to not have the opportunities to get question and answer, as that was a part of like an integral part of the election process, while others have sort of felt like video submissions in general, if you don't have the opportunity to participate in Q&A, then that puts you at a disadvantage to begin with. So it's not necessarily important to have this in writing. So that was just sort of the pros and cons about this amendment. The next amendment after that was talking about the preferences clause. So this one actually has a lot of different variations that I've heard from different people. So currently in the Constitution, there is a recommendation, so there is a constitutional clause which states if you are a current voting rep, then you get a preference in elections, which means that if there are outside Harvard community members who would like to run, then the current rep who would like to run has a higher preference, meaning that all of the other Harvard community members who are not reps would technically be disqualified from running compared to the reps. So there was 2 points that were brought up with this. The first point was the fact that some voting reps may have been elected very recently. So for example, if there was like a new turnover or there was a new election or a vacancy that was filled, then someone might have only fulfilled their role for a very short amount of time, like a week or 2 weeks or even a month. And in my opinion, as a governance chair, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. But I think one of the things that I would like to interpret is just the original intent of the authors when they wrote this clause. And one of the conversations that we had was the point of the preference is that if you had served a rep in the previous year, then you would know more about HGC operations than an outside member. And so if someone were to become a voting rep only within a couple of days or within a week, do they really have as much HGC knowledge as any other outside HGC member? So some people have recommended maybe making a minimum time required to serve before taking advantage of this preference clause to be in effect, such as being active for 1 semester as a rep, 1 month, 1 full academic year. Otherwise, the preference does not kick in. Another recommendation was just to delete the preference clause altogether. Some people felt that it would just be fair to put everyone on an even playing field, and your prior experience in the executive board should just come out in your campaign speech, and people should just be aware of that instead of disqualifying other candidates who are not reps. The last thing that was mentioned that I thought was also really interesting was that technically executive board members have no voting privilege. So the preference clause specifically states that voting reps have a preference, which means executive board members do not have a preference either. They would be treated like as any other outside Harvard community member. Kind of going back through previous elections, I've actually noticed some where executive members were given preference even though there was no other voting rep running. Even though there was a voting rep running, and outside Harvard community members running. So we just thought it'd be important to be consistent, despite the fact that executive board members don't have a voting privilege, that they would also be able to benefit from the preference clause should you continue to move forward with this in the next academic year. The last couple points was that for newly elected, these are Hamija's notes. The next couple points was that right now the Constitution currently says that an executive board member may not hold a primary voting rep position due to conflict of interest and the fact that executive board members don't have a voting privilege. But it doesn't say that they're not allowed to be an alternate voting rep, which means that if you are not a primary voting rep, if you're an alternate voting rep and an executive board member, but the primary voting rep is absent, then they would technically be able to have voting privileges. The other thing that was brought up was executive board members also being able to simultaneously hold a president, VP, or an equivalent role within their student government associations. And some people have expressed conflict of interest, time management, and just respecting the position, that it should not be fair that someone holds both positions. I've also heard the opposite side where someone has said, it's not up to the Constitution or the voting reps to determine someone else's time management abilities. The last point was having more than one voting rep. So this was a really interesting discussion topic because this was actually an amendment that was passed last year for any veteran voting reps out there. But last year, there was an amendment that was passed to have 1 primary and 1 alternate voting reps. And some graduate schools and representatives have sort of expressed that they would like to expand the number of alternate voting reps. So the discussion here is quite open as well. How much is too many and how little is too little, and should we let the discretion be up to the student government organizations? Other people have expressed concerns about dilution of responsibility. If there are 4 or 5 alternate voting reps, technically each voting rep can attend 1 meeting a semester, and is that really fulfilling up to your responsibilities? While other people have said, it's been tradition that our school has had multiple alternate reps, so we should continue to do so. So there's a lot of pros and cons for all of these amendments. And with that, I'm going to relinquish the last 12 minutes of my time here to sort of hear input from the general counsel. All right, so like I said previously, if you could click on participants and click on the hands raising feature, I will call on you based on the blue hands that are up. Okay, so up first is Rachel.
Peter, this is just a clarification about the preference rule and the proposal that exec members also benefit. So I'm thinking of a case where all the exec members, or a good majority of the exec members, want to go for different positions within the exec, but still exec positions for the subsequent year. So my understanding is that they would be first in line and would defeat all other applicants because they are an incumbent of the exec.
So technically under the Constitution, executive board members don't have voting privileges, so they would actually not have that preference, technically. Even
That's
though
the proposal, right?
election results, I've seen that they've had, and they were treated the same as voting reps. If we were to really read the Constitution closely, only the voting reps have that preference privilege.
Sure, but the proposal is that the exec also have the privilege, right?
Right, so the exec and the voting reps would both benefit from the privilege, but the proposal is of many-fold, including the minimum requirement to serve to benefit, and the second one would be to just completely get rid of the preference clause altogether.
Yeah, but I guess my worry is that that could allow it to be the case that the exec members don't change at all for several years. Just putting it out there for folks.
Yeah, no, good point. Yeah, we're here to collect feedback, so we're definitely writing that down. Thank you, Rachel. All right, up next, Carlos.
Hi, everyone. My comment is with regards to that, to the preference clause. So I didn't hear that. I'm an alternate, right, for HLS, and I didn't hear that the preference applied to alternates. And to me, that didn't seem fair, especially if the alternate is someone that is very engaged with the council and sort of participates. I don't think that allowing alternates to be able to deepen their commitment to the council at the end of a particular term would be contrary to the intent behind the clause in the first place. So I would suggest that the council reconsiders adding alternates to the preference.
Hi, Carlos. So that's a very good point. I would say that I do believe, at least based on one interpretation of the Constitution, that it would apply to alternates because alternates are listed under the, they're sort of constitutionally mandated or approved, I guess, because it's not required for each school to have one, but it's certainly sanctioned in a positive sense. So it probably would apply, but it's definitely a worthwhile comment, and we could, add language clarifying that, because I agree with you, especially if the intent is to allow individuals who have been involved and therefore have a sense for the institutional structure and functioning to have an opportunity to serve and continue the mission of HGC, then they should definitely be part of it. So thanks.
Yeah, and to add on to Jojo's comment, I would say that the language is ambiguous enough that it's open to whoever is the governance chair that year to interpret it in a certain respect. In my interpretation, it is voting privilege, which alternate reps have as well, so they can also benefit. Okay, we do have a lot of hands up, so I'm going to limit speaking time to 2 minutes per person. Next, Emily Mello.
Great, thanks, Peter. My comment is on the one voting rep and one alternate rule, the last bullet you went over. I know we've also talked about this bilaterally, but I think my issue with this right now is that some schools, and I know this particularly applies to HKS, hadn't carried over this rule into the bylaws of our own student government. So I don't really take issue with this idea of having one official rep and one alternate per school in the long run, but I think having some stipulation to allow for the conflict we're facing for this year would be helpful for any schools that are in a similar boat of thinking that they could have more official alternates than it turns out that they could, just out of fairness to those people. And I realize that can be tricky with resources from the council.
Sounds good. Up next, Nima.
I want to quickly second what Emily said, because I think the GSC is facing a similar issue. And one more comment on the case of alternates and being at the discretion of the school. In the argument against it being the possible dilution of responsibilities, would it be possible to maybe add an attendance clause that requires still attendance from those alternate reps, so it wouldn't have the system of one person attending one meeting? And one other argument for it to be at the discretion of the schools, I know from us having multiple reps, it's been great to have different departments represented, whether it's architecture, the student government, or like Masters of Design within the school be represented at HGC, so it's a more broad and holistic representation of the university.
Yeah, and Nima, just for the sake of trying to be as unbiased as possible, but also trying to convey messages that I've heard, in the spring semester, I'll also introduce a governance committee for the end of the year. There is some discussions about a new amendment regarding attendance and tardiness policies, and I remember that there are some people who've expressed some concerns about, particularly during COVID, it might be a little bit tone deaf to have too strict of an attendance policy. Even regardless of COVID, some people have sort of expressed that it's important to be as welcoming as possible, to be inclusive rather than exclusive. So I definitely hear your point. I just want to propose an alternate side that I've heard from a different angle. So we'll definitely discuss that further in the future as well, unless you want to bring it up in this voting meeting for this semester. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next person for another point, Diego Alvarez from HLS.
Thanks, Peter. So first, I'd like to kind of like have us consider that maybe we should not be having a vote on these amendments this semester, and maybe we should wait until next semester. I don't think that like being able to think about these points between now and the next meeting is going to be enough to vote. I think that we should give it a little bit of time, especially since a lot of these amendments don't necessarily do a lot of provide immediate relief or anything like that. I think they're supposed to be for next year. So I think if we waited until the end of the next semester, it would be fine. Also, I'd like to say, for a lot of these, Peter, you and I talked about this, but the way that the Constitution and the bylaws are set up, the bylaws only need a majority vote in order to be changed, while the Constitution requires 3/4 of a vote. So that being the case, I think that the amendments should be, like the Constitution itself and the amendments should be drafted in a way to allow for a pretty like foundational requirement with like explicit language specifying certain parameters that will be left to the bylaws essentially to change. So in that way, we'll have a kind of like a guideline from the Constitution about like what is preferred and what we would rather have. And then if exceptional circumstances arise, for example, a plague or pandemic, whatever, then those kind of amendments or constitutional provisions that would require a 3/4 change would not need to be changed at all, and instead would just require like a simple majority to change, and would be much easier to change and much easier to adapt to the needs of the HGC. So I would just like to say that I think we should to word these amendments in with those principles in mind.
Yeah, Diego, just to sort of provide additional context in terms of pushing the vote to a later semester, I do think that if we were to consider that, we should take a look at each and every amendment to see which ones are more relevant and less relevant. We tried to do our best to do the most time-sensitive ones this semester. I think some of the conversations was the fact that if we were to vote on some of these at the end of spring semester, it wouldn't be in time for the elections for spring for the executive board of the following year. So some people want to implement some of these constitutional amendments prior to that election, just to give you a perspective on the people who proposed the amendments. But I definitely think that it is worth considering of tabling this entire amendment conversation into the next year as well. But just to keep in mind, if we were to do that, none of these changes will be implemented for this year's elections.
As a counterpoint though, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that the changes would not occur until the next cycle. So theoretically, these changes could happen for this upcoming election. And in fact, we could actually make a constitutional amendment specifying that wouldn't be the case for the future. But as of right now, there's actually no restriction saying that.
Well, so I guess Jojo and Chinzia can comment a little bit more on this, but I believe that the constitutional amendment voting meeting comes after elections. I mean, we can always switch that timeline around, of course, but that's what I believe happened last year. Is that right?
Well, it is what happened last year, but the timing is, is valuable. We can definitely talk about it. I don't think we're going to be able to do it in, at a meeting in the next 2 weeks, but we can definitely talk about the timing and whether it's possible to do it before elections. But let's move on and get the last substantive comments. And Diego, thank you for bringing all of that up, and specifically the timing issue. We could look into it and over time. And
really quickly, Diego, if you're interested in talking with someone who worked on the committee last year, Billy Wright, who is your the HLS president, he was one of the people who worked on it extensively with both our president from last year as well as the chair of governance. So you can ask him a bit about like his input on how they made changes. But I think just from my memory, it's also another thing is like when we make changes to the constitution bylaws, we need to get it approved by the provost office. So that also takes a lot of time, as you can see with our budget. So I think that's the issue of like time to when it actually gets implemented and approved. So I think that's another thing to consider.
Mm-hmm. All right, next Tersing, say.
Hi, it's Searing. So
I'm sorry.
It's fine. I'm confused about this amendment that says to serve on the board, you must be able to be present for the meetings in person. So is that saying like anybody who can be on the board has to be in Cambridge to have in-person meetings?
So the idea for that one, I believe, was not during COVID, but would be if you were elected in the spring for the following academic year, if Harvard were to be back on campus, then you would need to be present in person. While others have recommended just making all of our general council meetings hybrid with a video conferencing feature moving forward from the next academic year.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you, that makes sense.
Do you have any positions or thoughts on that amendment?
Yeah, actually, I think that what COVID has shown us is that video communication is really important for people who are not able to make it to in-person events. And I think, in particular, I'm thinking about my disabled friends who have needed video communication, but have never been able to get this kind of accommodation because it has never affected able-bodied people. So I think that making it hybrid would be a good idea.
Okay. And guys, I do want to be time sensitive, so I'm going to just take these last three as the last points, and then we are going to move on to the next items. So Mulshri?
Hi, I have the comment about preferences for election. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to be fair, it makes sense to have preferences for executive committee as well as voting and alternate reps. But then if you include all of those, it would leave very less space for like other members to join in. And that is all I wanted to point out.
All right, Hugh?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to comment a little bit about the preferences thing as well. I think I was surprised during my first meeting, which was an election meeting, to find that if I had wanted to, I could have thrown my hat in and had a preference without knowing anything about what was happening. So I generally think that I think it's a good idea to remove that clause because in my mind that creates an inability to welcome new blood and to lose some sustainability. And I think for the point that was being made about when these would come into effect, these modifications, I understand the issue of timing for approval to changes to the Constitution, but I do kind of wonder about us making rules for ourselves that don't apply to us. And I just want to keep us accountable to the modifications that we're making.
Yeah, definitely. And, just to sort of echo something that Diego mentioned, if we do, not in the chat, but something he said earlier, if we do move forward with tabling this conversation because of the approval from the provost office and the time sensitivity, things like the preference clause would still hold for the spring elections. Last comment would be from William.
Yeah, I have a comment about the physical presence thing. I know a lot of schools are physically in Cambridge, but in particular for those in the extension school, not everyone who attends the extension school is physically going to be in Cambridge. That's just the nature of how extension works. So that clause will be very exclusive to reps or anybody who wants to be, part of HGC from the extension school. Mm-hmm. It's that was probably not the intent. The intent was probably the assumption that everyone was already in Cambridge. But even outside of COVID, extension has is always going to be largely not in person on Cambridge campus, and I'd like to see more availability for our family out in the extension school to be able to participate, because right now they as it stands, they're not going to have as much of a voice as they really should be. They are an equal school and they should have an equal chance to represent.
Okay, sounds good. And just for the sake of time, I am going to end the input there. Guys, this is really wonderful of getting so many different varied schools and opinions and thoughts on all of these issues. So I just want to do a shameless plug here. I did open up a governance committee. So if you are interested, please private message me, because I am still sort of building up that committee. And I would love to start discussions on this soon so that we can sort of decide as to whether or not we want to introduce these for this semester or for next semester. And then lastly, for our operations updates, we want to welcome 3 new alternate representatives that are being added to our general council. So Mark York from Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, Carlos Gonzalez Sierra from Harvard Law School, and Kimberlyn Bailey from the Harvard School of Public Health. So guys, welcome, and thanks for coming to a very intense first meeting, but it's great to have you here. All right, and with that, Jojo, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter, and just to echo that these are great conversations, and I agree with what Diego said. We wish that democracy generally could function as well. Also, just so everyone knows, our current constitution is 1 year old, so there are definitely a lot of things that can be workshopped and hopefully improved on it. I will now turn it over for a short update on all the excellent work they are generally doing to Abhinaya and Cynthia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. So I'll try to keep it short. We just wanted to give an update on internal engagement strategy for this year for the policy side. And in sum, basically we want to connect different organizations and different people amongst the schools so that they can stay connected without having HGC having to facilitate every single meeting, conversation, event type of thing. So there's basically 3 general kind of groups of organizations I would like to help connect. So the first one is advocacy organizations for student initiatives and just student policy advocacy related to online learning. So there's a lot of petitions going on saying a lot of different things. So this is just going to start with sending out a Google form to the different student and government presidents and just try to get people who are part of the advocacy organizations to identify and then just create a base or a platform where they can connect. The second group of, or I guess the second type of groups that we want to connect are the affinity/diversity groups for all the organizations. So every school has several ones. And at the law school, there's a model where there's affinity group coalition, which is basically just a platform and a place for all affinity groups to come together and share resources. So we want to extend this to the graduate schools at large, basically have some sort of platform and eventually hopefully a more structured organization, not as structured as a council, but just a place where all the affinity groups can come together and just share what they're doing and help each other advocate and just work together, collaborate, whatever it is. And lastly, we would like to start or connect all the first generation groups across the campus. So there's several very different initiatives, and it'd just would be helpful to reach out to all the graduate schools and kind of make a compiled list so that there can at least be some sort of community and at least some sort of sharing of resources. There's a Next Gen organization, which is from, I believe, the Harvard Graduate Living Council, not this organization, but a different one, basically for the graduate housing. So that's tried to connect all the schools, but this would kind of be a bit more exclusive with just all the organizations. So those are kind of the 3 primary areas that we'd like to start connecting first, and then hope to kind of take things further and see what can be most helpful for everyone. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Advocacy and Policy. And Cynthia, and everyone can reach out to Advocacy if they have ideas on that. We will now turn to Heidi and Tara, who have no updates. Thank you, Information. Just guys, keep doing what you're doing. Information is fantastic. Another plug for social media. Harvard Graduate Council is on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't think we have Twitter, which is good because Twitter is a toxic place. But you can follow us on all of the excellent social media sites, and stay tuned for more updates on that. Angela and Amreen with Student Life and Community Engagement.
Hi everyone, so I'll be keeping everyone updated on student life and social engagement. So first we want to say thank you so much to everyone who has been reposting our HGC graphics on election day. We also want to do a shout out to Tara and Amarin for doing the amazing social media content for HGC. Second, we want to keep everyone updated on an awesome event from Medicine Motion. It's called Olympiad. So for this event, we have 20 universities participating, and our goal is to encourage Harvard students to participate in this event and to encourage them to really win this game for Harvard. For the people who are not familiar with our summer events, I'll just do a short introduction. So during the summer, HGC Student Life team invited 12 student councils to collaborate on student life events. Because given the current situation, we felt there is a need to encourage inter-school collaboration and also to encourage connection between different schools to make sure all students can feel included in the Student Life Today conversation. So after confirmation, HGC Student Life team divided councils into 4 groups. Group 2 includes expertise on health and wellness from the Longwood campus. That's medical school, medicine in motion, HSDM, and HSPH. And after several meetings, we decided to host a health and wellness series during the summer. So this Olympia event is really an extension of our summer event. This is hosted by Medicine in Motion and sponsored and supported by HGC. So our goal for this event series is really to give councils and schools a platform, resources to start a conversation, do something great for the student body. Amanda, are you here? So Amanda will actually keep us updated on the Medicine in Motion event, Olympiad. We really, really, really want to encourage everyone to participate in this event. And we'll also be doing an awesome video here in Boston and Cambridge around November 20th. So the Cambridge Boston students can actually gather around here near Harvard campus. So we're actually going to rent a drone, and then we're going to take a video for our HGC team. Amanda, if you're here, please feel free to keep everyone updated on your work.
Yeah, thank you so much to Angela for inviting me here and sharing our event, and thank you to everyone for listening, and thank you to the reps who have already gotten the message and started to spread that message. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly summarize our Olympiad event. It's starting next week and it's running through the week of Thanksgiving. It's meant to be an opportunity for people to get active. We have 3 kind of events within the Olympiad. There's a 5K run, half marathon bike, or at-home workout. You time yourself doing any of those, and if you would like, you can submit a time to the leaderboard. But in the spirit of kind of inclusivity and accessibility, we're also taking submissions towards team participation points. If you don't feel like submitting a time, or if you had to modify the workout, or if you wanted to complete a different sort of workout, we're also accepting that as participation. And so each Harvard grad school is going to be its own team, and we'll be counting kind of high placements on the leaderboard and also participation towards team points. And hopefully, the teams will be able to compete with each other, and that will kind of foster a sense of community within the schools and also inter-school competition, which is something we notice, at least within like HMS, as being something that's hard to come by now, especially as a lot of people are either working remotely or doing school in kind of a socially distanced manner, even if school is happening in person. And so we thought this could be a good opportunity for students to get a chance to compete with each other and feel connected. So it'd be really, really great. I think we'll be following up on this later. I'll be trying to keep in touch with reps and other people from schools, like student government or anything. It'd be really great if reps and student government could help promote this, either by word of mouth, official email lists, Facebook groups. That would be great. We would love to have a lot of emails and publicity out during this week. At the bare minimum, we're trying to get at least 10 students per school. We think that'd be something that's doable, even just by word of mouth. And I think, at 10 plus is enough to have like a decent team for each school and to feel like each school can put forward a team. And then importantly, we're giving away one shirt to the top male and female finisher for each of the 3 events per school. So that is 6 shirts per school. So advertise that to your students. Because it's 6 possible shirts given to each school. What about students who do not identify as either male or female? I will ask about that because right now Medicine in Motion has stratified the leaderboard, but it's not something, I guess it's not something we will be checking. So I think we could easily alter the form to be more inclusive that way, but thank you for bringing that up. And then the one quick last thing is, as Angela mentioned, we would love to film a video using a drone that we will be renting with like kind of an amateur drone photographer. We think those would be really cool shots, and it would be kind of a nice way for HGC to be able to have this video to show that we were able to bring students together and promote wellness and also bring students together, during this time. And so I would love to be able to work with the reps or work with anyone from schools to coordinate some sort of filming with consideration that currently there are increased COVID restrictions. So we would be very careful to make sure to fall under those restrictions. So for instance, maybe we would have 2 students from each school or something. That would be 24 people, which would be within, I think, outdoor guidelines. Or we could film in smaller groups and not have every school represented at once. That way we could make sure to not overcrowd or go against the COVID guidelines. But yeah, I think that's all I have currently. But if anyone has any questions, or any questions, ideas, suggestions, I'd be very happy to hear them. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for having me here and for helping us with this event.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. If any reps have any questions, please feel free to ask Amanda now because I think she'll be leaving soon.
Maybe in the interest of time, I could just give a quick update on the Group 1 events that we are looking forward to. So first of all, huge thank you to the representatives and student leaders from HGC, HBS, the Extension School, Law School, and I think we're missing the Kennedy School there, which I can just quickly type.
I forgot.
That's okay, all good. For gathering up over a Zoom call and kind of sharing some ideas on what pain points they're seeing among students and what ideas might actually help bring the student community from the various schools together. So really, really appreciative. There was one key idea that we came up with, and then the message of thanks is just an add-on. So I'll speak about message of thanks campaign. This would be like a virtual marketing campaign where students can fill out a Google form to just put out an anonymous like thank you message or something that they're grateful for within the Harvard community. As an incentive, we might pick a few raffle winners, and they might get some swag or like a up to $20, $30 gift. So just waiting for some budget approvals there. Second event is a virtual Friendsgiving dinner. The emphasis on virtual because we don't want to encourage meetings or gatherings in this kind of a setting during this COVID time. This would essentially be again, students would fill out a Google form, and they would highlight like some of their interest areas and their time zones, and we would behind the scenes pair them up, send out an email, and encourage them to like just virtually get together over Zoom, and grab a dinner together, and just engage in conversation. They could also do games nights. It's really up to them based on what they're interested in. Ideally, like we're waiting again for budget approval, but this would be a first come first serve type of an event, at least in our pilot phase right now. And we would be able to give gift cards or reimburse like up to X dollars, I believe $20 for every person's meal. So it's really like, we're not going to be exclusive just because someone may not be able to afford that. We want to make sure we put those restrictions and barriers aside, almost trying to replicate, if this were in real life. If anyone has any questions or comments, like you guys can either shoot them right now or just feel free to reach out. I will drop my email in the chat.
For finance, we had the One Harvard Catalyst Fund finance meeting about a week ago, and we approved Medicine Motion to get $500 just to carry out some of their activities. We have one other application that has to get approved through exec first before it comes to the council. So that's the update on that. I'm going to move it over to Saeed for the next one.
Oh, Brett, actually, I had a question regarding that. Is it, can people still apply if they wanted to, or is it closed now? Sorry, Brett, did you hear what I said? Sorry.
No, I didn't hear anything. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Is the application process over now, or can groups still submit for funding?
Yeah, they can still submit. We'll likely meet once a month if we get new applications in.
Okay, good to know. Thanks. We had an inquiry about that.
Yeah, thank you, Chanthia, and thanks, Brett. Just a really quick reminder for everyone regarding the reimbursement form. We've decided that the best approach with reimbursing you guys is doing a check at the end of the semester. And we decided that's the best case because of international students, right? And wiring money could be very difficult and hard. So we'll offer two options for you guys: PayPal, which we think is like the most convenient for transfers for international students, or a physical check. And we have your addresses because we the swag and everything. So yeah, just to let you know, that will be happening. If there's an issue, please let either Brett or I know, and we can address that and work on that. But aside from that, that's about it for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Finance. And because it showed up multiple times on the budget, just so everyone knows, in terms of approval from the Provost Office, I will be speaking with Marshall Page, who everyone met, in the next day or two. So any budgetary concerns will hopefully be resolved by the middle of the week. That is it for updates. We have a couple of announcements now. So let's start by turning it over to Rajiv for this health podcast.
Hi, everyone. So this is Ritvij. I'm going to talk a little bit about an initiative that we are trying to get underway pretty soon, hopefully for the start of the spring semester. So essentially, with the public health school being out in Longwood, we've had issues with people saying that it's hard for them to connect with other students at the Cambridge campuses on areas of common interest, and that's only been accentuated with the pandemic, since most people don't even know people who've come into entering classes in their own schools, forget other schools. So what we decided to do is start a podcast. We initially wanted to do a Zoom sort of thing, but we've been hearing consistently that Zoom fatigue is quite real and not something that, and people aren't keen on jumping on another Zoom to have a conversation and interact with other people. But very quickly, what I'm going to say is that we are essentially hoping to use this podcast format to bring together students who are part of student groups at Chan and at different schools. So every podcast series will bring students from a different school at Harvard with students at Chan to discuss a common topic of interest. So to, I guess, make it a bit more concrete, looking at AI and its impact on global mental health, like a student group that's doing this kind of work at Chan, and then somebody else who's maybe doing this kind of work at the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. And then the next podcast will focus on another theme in public health, and then it would be someone at Chan, and then say perhaps HKS. We are hoping to get in touch with other reps and use them as avenues to get in touch with student groups at other schools, since we don't have that much visibility into those student groups and into the leaders of those student groups from where we are. So definitely, I'm going to just post my email here on the chat. Definitely get in touch if this is something you want to hear more about, and if you'd be happy to chat with us about maybe even improving the idea and refining it, since we're still in the ideating stage. And of course, if you would be happy to try and connect us with health-related student groups at your school. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rutvij, whose name is now correctly spelled on the agenda. And sorry, I apologize about that. Does anyone have any questions about the podcast? All right. Seeing none, we will turn then to Diego Garcia Bloom, who is the president of the HKS Student Government, who has graciously agreed to join us in this meeting for an announcement that will likely involve or potentially involve all of the student governments. So if the reps would like to bring this back to your respective student governments, you are welcome to as well, but I will turn it to Diego now for his announcement.
Thanks, Jojo. Hi, everybody. My name is Diego, and like I said, I'm currently the president of the student government HKS. I've been working with some PhD students at GSAS because we're really worried about the invitation of HKS, but other schools, also other schools, of Trump administration officials who have undertaken a concerted effort to undermine principles and just fundamental democratic institutions, most notably refusing to concede and using deception and lies to undermine the electoral system. I myself have a lot of other issues that I will be putting in an op-ed, but this is the language that we came together that we thought would bring the most people together. And it has basically one big ask, which is we have now done a Harvard-wide one. So I'll share that with you all. And it basically asks that before HKS or any school invites somebody from the Trump administration to teach or speak, that they be held accountable for their actions in undermining these fundamental principles of democracy. The fair elections, peaceful transfer of power, these are fundamental things that the world's strongest, longest democracy should uphold. And we believe that if these people are given spots here, we're slowly legitimizing that kind of behavior here, and it's very worrying. So we want to hold a strong line on this. And I've been in contact with the other presidents of the school. So far we have GSD, the Divinity School, the Extension School, Harvard Medical School on board. I would really want to hear back from the presidents at GSAS, as I've been working with their PhDs, and at the law school. But we're hoping to make this an open letter that everybody can sign on to individually, and then distribute it to the Harvard University leadership, the deans, provost, and president. And basically, we're not asking, just a blanket ban on anything, but one is saying, you need to share with us guidelines of accountability that anybody, first we need to know who's being, from this administration is being considered. and then if they have disqualifying characteristics or qualities because of their tenure at the administration. And two, if there is someone that's going to speak and be legitimized by Harvard, they should be challenged on their role in this or not being invited to speak at all. We can't sweep under the rug what they've done to destroy democracy here and abroad when they come to speak here. So, I mean, we think we're one of the last lines of defense on how much these erosions of core democratic principles have gone, and we're trying to hold the line here with the presidents, the president and the deans of the school. Any questions? My ask is for the reps to go back to their president or student government and make sure that they have read the email that we sent out and see if this doesn't have to be something that the entire student government of that school signs onto, but just that they will help us distribute it. That's all we need basically. And we already have about half the schools on there, so it's getting good momentum.
Diego Alvarez, did you have a question?
Yeah, but the other Diego just answered it. Essentially, I was going to ask if we could propose any modifications or suggestions. But it sounds like since you guys have already gotten signatures on it, I think that it would probably be too late. So no.
We have negotiated up to this point with a lot of the presidents in the other school and some of the PhDs at GSAS for where it's gotten it. So it's a little set in stone. So but if you have some, I would personally take the suggestions and I can elevate it if it's something that it really stands out. It would just take another reopening of that whole thing. So it's a little hard to do.
No, that certainly makes sense. Diego, would you, my two asks, would you mind putting your email address just in the chat so if anyone wants to reach out to you about it? And are you a member of the President Circle's WhatsApp group? Because if you'd like to share the letter there, you should be because
I don't think I am yet.
President. Okay. It may be because HKS had their elections later, but we will be sure to add you this evening, and then if you want to share it there, it's a direct link between all of the student government presidents.
Yeah, Himaja will or she'll work with you to add you to that.
I can add you to that.
Can I express one worry about all this, which is that I don't think there's any ramification for the Harvard University administration if they just ignore it. So I think, if anything, there should be also some movement to organize so that when if this sort of thing does happen, there is a way for students to take matters into our hands and protest this sort of thing.
100%. This is just like the opening salvo. And if you look at really where our leverage is in Harvard's reputation. So I'm actually in touch with a good number of reporters that are really willing and able to take the story fast. And so that's kind of where you see the hit of Harvard by ignoring this. So we're working on, when we talked about how this would be enforced, we came up with some negotiation strategies about what would be the hit of the school not doing this, and we're trying to make it a reputational hit with the media.
I don't think we would win a media war against Harvard, but here is a group that might be useful for this is actually the Graduate Student Union, because they can call a strike, which does hurt Harvard very physically. I don't have kind of opinions on these either way, but the Graduate Student Union does have that kind of, like, that is part of their bargaining power, and that is part of their role for existing. I would highly recommend talking to them to see what their buy-in is.
Yeah,
if they have a buy-in.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I think here we're setting our principles, and then as things happen, especially I think the IOP at HKS are the worst culprits in this. activate those groups to help us specifically call out when anything is underway.
I mean, sure, discussion of principles is nice, but it's hard to do that when we're dealing with, you know, if this does happen, then we're dealing with unprincipled people, right? So like principles go out the window. But anyway, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, so it's definitely a good comment as well, and a conversation that hopefully we can continue. Diego put his email address in the chat, and it's available on the agenda now. One thing I think that is definitely worth emphasizing as well from Mark, who posted in the chat, which is, you know, while we should condemn actions which undermine democracy, right, we should make sure that on campus we are welcoming people with different perspectives, and hopefully this can be part of an information, a conversation as well. And the HGC is here to help us foster those conversations and to make sure that we are doing things that are protecting the best interest of our students and definitely America as well.
Yeah, if you take a look at the letter, we had a lot of discussions about that, and you know, we talk about the importance of you know, still debating these topics together, diversity of opinions in terms of views and policy, et cetera, but just drawing the lines of where we start legitimizing this kind of behavior in a school like this. And that has real consequences, not only here, but out in the world. So definitely your comment was really thought out when we were writing this.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, we thank you for organizing this as well, and taking a stand. And we will add you to the President Circle group as president of HGS.
Great.
So with that, and with all of the announcements, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, I think that was Chuck who motioned. Second?
Second.
We have a second. Great. Meeting is adjourned. I think it was Jess. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone. Please stay safe. Another very non-political issue is COVID. So please stay safe, and we will see everyone sometime in the week after Thanksgiving for our last general council meeting of the semester.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Be on the lookout for a Google form for you to submit questions to the administration, or even for us to discuss during the President Circle. And yeah, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Chuck made the motion to adjourn.
And Jess seconded it, I believe.
Chuck at HBS. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.